Okay, so I'm probably going to be in the minority on this, but this movie didn't really work for me. It had some great moments, cameos, and references, but the overall plot left me wanting for more. A lot more. Let's get the spoiler free review started. Ayo, what's good? Welcome to The Gist. With me, Jared. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse brings us the sequel to the Miles Morales Spider-Man origin story we got in 2018. The first installment of this animated franchise really surprised me. I was blown away with how much heart there was. Multiple times, the first movie got me choked up and tugged on my heartstrings. The comic book style animation was delightfully refreshing on top of a solid and compelling narrative. So coming into the sequel, my expectations were pretty high. Unfortunately, upon leaving the theater a few hours ago, I'm pretty disappointed in this movie. There were things I enjoyed though. To start off, the animation and action was great. There were stylistic choices of how the characters were portrayed in a given scene that I liked. They really depicted when the characters held diametrically opposed positions and when they were united. I like this aspect about the film, but it could be something that others may not like, as it is very noticeable when this style of visually artistic liberties is present. There were a lot of cameos and references that Spidey fans will definitely love. I really liked Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, and it was great seeing Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider in this movie. Visually, this movie is great. It continues to deliver on the comic book panels made into animated life that made the first film so unique. It also traverses many aspects about the multiverse and other versions of Spidey people that, if taken in a lighthearted context, can be enjoyable. There are sequences that give context to the events in the first film of the franchise, so you could dive right on in, even if you hadn't seen it. But you are depriving yourself of a significantly better movie if you hadn't seen the first one. Now, on to the aspects I didn't enjoy. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is ultimately a filler movie, in my opinion. This is clearly a setup film to the next installment of a trilogy. I didn't find any resolution to the narrative points introduced. Nor did I find that our main characters of Miles or Gwen went through much, if any, character development. The narrative was lackluster for me. I found the pacing really odd, and the 2 hours 16-minute runtime really wore on me. The beginning sequences of Gwen and Miles were jarringly peculiar. It was kind of like going through the opening credits twice. In light of where the story starts and ends, it took a long time to get to what seemingly was the point. In the third act of the film, I still found myself wondering, where was this story going? We were spending a lot of time with Gwen and Miles, but weren't given any clear indication until pretty much the end of the film as to what Miles' involvement was to the overarching multiversal issue. And then the cliffhanger of an ending had myself and many other audience members wondering why the movie had stopped there. Overall, there are many pleasurable moments and references that will make for a great movie for a lot of audience members. However, for myself, the first installment of the Miles Morales Spider-Man franchise set the precedent of a narratively compelling and emotionally deep movie, compounded with awesome action and visual excellence. This sequel does not live up to the fulfilling full course of a film that the first movie does, but rather it's just an appetizer for what I hope to be a hearty and forthcoming third installment.
You have no idea what you're doing!
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Alrighty, so for spoilers, I found it odd that we spent so much time with Spider-Gwen at the beginning of the film. We got her backstory and found out that her Peter Parker actually became the Lizard. Her dad is police captain and is of course chasing her. Then we get the introduction to the other Spider-Verse characters of Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Woman, who eventually enlist the help of Spider-Gwen to help with all issues pertaining to the multiverse. This sequence gave us backstory to not only Gwen, but also Miles. But then we do the same thing with Miles Morales in the next chunk of sequences. It was off-putting to go over an opening credit style sequence twice after what was already a long opening credit style sequence with Gwen. It should be said that the fourth wall breaking backstory shtick isn't what I'm talking about here, but rather the entire series of scenes that we get to start off the film. The shtick works fine in this sequel. A bit redundant for me, but it gets a pass being that it was a storytelling point carried over from the first movie. Okay, speaking of the narrative, what was this movie about really? It's not an introduction to the multiverse because the first film did that already. It's not a good guy beats bad guy movie because that doesn't really happen. As mentioned, it takes a while to get a grasp on what's really going on. The Spot is introduced as a low on the totem pole villain, and we're not really sure the extent of his role to the story until way later. Once he amplifies his power and becomes a multiversal threat, he's pretty much gone for the remaining 2/3 of the movie. The film also introduces that the Spot is a threat to Miles, but gives no resolution to that plot point. Rather, it builds on that plot point by explaining that there are canon-specific events to a Spider-Person's life. I really like this idea, in that there are necessary, pivotal, and non-negotiable events to the hero's journey. That's what made Miguel's character so compelling, that he has done what Miles is setting out to do. Miguel found a universe where he could be happy, but ultimately doom that universe to extinction because of his own canon-breaking decision. Miles seeks to defeat the Spot, and by so doing, save his father's life. However, if he does that, his world, his universe, ends. Apparently, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, his father must die. Of course, Miles doesn't agree to letting his dad die, and believes there's still something he can do about it to prevent it. And that's what prompts the multiversal spider people to chase after Miles, taking up a huge chunk of the second and third acts. Again, very interesting point, but it took way too long to get to. And there wasn't any resolution. Miles doesn't get to confront the Spot by the end of the film. He doesn't get the chance to save his dad or his universe. He doesn't get to prove Miguel wrong. Rather, he's sent to another alternate universe. And then in terms of Miles' character development, the main through line for him in this movie is debating whether or not to tell his parents the truth about being Spider-Man. And when he does tell his mom the truth, it's not actually his mom, but one from a different universe. So again, no consequences to what the movie poses as a pivotal decision for this character. Additionally, Miles' buildup of confidence to make this decision didn't seem earned at all. The interactions he had with the other Spider people didn't constitute or warrant a change of heart at all for me. His Spider friends knew him, and yet to Miles, still betrayed his trust in them. So why would he be compelled to tell his parents the truth when others who know the truth about him, his powers, the nature of being a hero, deceived him about his involvement and the implications of his decisions to the rest of the multiverse? If anything, this seems like more evidence to further conceal his identity rather than reveal it. And then with Gwen, the movie introduces an interesting dynamic with her and her father. They do love each other, but upon the realization that Gwen is Spider-Woman, her dad chooses moral principles and occupational obligation over loyalty to family. He intends to still take her to jail for the death of their world's Peter Parker. Upon her dad attempting to take her in, Gwen is able to escape into the multiverse with the other spider people. And the next time she meets her dad at the end of the movie, we find out that her dad has resigned as police captain, seemingly ceasing the need for Gwen and her father to navigate this aspect of their relationship further. It was hard to understand what the audience was supposed to ascertain from Gwen's possible character arc. If she was supposed to battle with moral principles and occupational obligation over loyalty to her friend Miles, the movie didn't convey that very well for me. The opening sequences set up interesting things for her character. With all the time spent on her character, I was hoping for more. But by the end of the film, her character was in the same spot for me, someone who stands by her friends. It didn't seem like her black sheep mentality was that big of an issue, because she was a part of the multiversal Spider People team for most of the film. At the end, she creates a new team, or a new band, as the movie puts it, to go and save Miles. I'm perplexed by the character arcs, or lack thereof, for Gwen and Miles in this movie. A few other spoilery things. It was cool seeing the other Spider People, Toby and Andrew. The Lego Spidey world was a definite surprise. Though these cameos got a big reaction from the audience I was with, they ultimately were hollow for me as they didn't serve narrative purpose. Just fun, cool things to look at. Also, multiversal logic was confusing and hard to follow. If Miles is and always was an anomaly, how do they know what is and isn't canon-breaking events for his universe? So many questions, so little answers. And that's the gist, or more like the rant, to my spoiler-free and spoiler-filled review for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. A movie I think most people will like because of the action, humor, and cameos, but ultimately leaves me disappointed. Cameos can't cover up an unfulfilling narrative for a placeholder kind of a movie. What did you think of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Was I too harsh on the movie? Did you interpret the narrative that was being told differently? Hit me up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll catch you next time on The Gist.